Hello and welcome to the Insider Track, and today we're talking all things Liverpool. Obviously, had to get David in to help me with that, of course. Now, Liverpool are set for a busy summer and what has been the maddest of Premier League years. Not only is Sam Allardyce back in the league, Erling Haaland breaking records, I would expect that Liverpool are probably going to be the club that we talk about in the summer a lot. Maybe Chelsea will join them too, or maybe a few others, but certainly Liverpool, because the season has not been great by their standards, although they are on a winning run now and getting closer to Manchester United. Whether they can break into that top four, we'll wait and see. But they've done it before. They might need Alisson again, David, to jump up with a late goal for them. We shall wait and see on that front. But first and foremost, how are you, David? And thanks for coming on.
Yeah, very good. It was at Anfield last night, so yeah, nice to see them getting a little winning run together. A bit more like normality being restored. A bit more like recent seasons. See them get on that winning run, and yeah, we don't know where they're going to finish up now, but as you say, I think I totally agree. They're big summer ahead for Liverpool, regardless of whether they break that top four or not. So exciting times for fans and for us as journalists as well. Lots to cover coming forward. Yeah.
Obviously, we at Football Insider, we're talking about transfers a lot. You're obviously the Merseyside correspondent. Make sure you follow David, Liverpool, Everton fans. He's your guy. And anyone else that's just interested, follow David. But before we get into the transfers, we're going to look at targets and break down some things that maybe you've seen rumoured and things like that. What's happened to Liverpool this season? Why did they have such a drop? Jurgen Klopp's teams do this. I don't know. We've spoke about this before, but there was a time Dortmund were actually near the relegation zone under Jurgen Klopp. And then the season after that, they were fantastic again. So what happened? Why has Liverpool dropped off? Has it just been that midfield?
Yeah, I think it's been a big part of it. I think you've got to throw in the midfield, it's sort of aged together, and that has sort of all come to a head at one point, and there's been a very sudden sort of collapse. You also got to throw in the injuries they've had have been terrible this season. It's no coincidence the sort of form is settling now because they've got Jota and Diaz back, and that's not to say they would have been a perfect team and that would have completely papered over the midfield cracks this season. I think Liverpool we would have seen a drop off, but what we're seeing at the moment is, even though they've been conceding quite a lot of goals of late, I know clean sheet last night, but that was a rare one really recently. They've been scoring a lot of goals to just cover that up, and I think we would have seen a lot more of that had their attackers been fit. So it's been a bit of a combination. I think that says they need midfield regeneration. We know that's something that's going to happen this summer, but also suggests that they need a bigger squad that's going to be more available to guard against injuries, because what's been happening this season is they've had the likes of Naby Keita's picked up injuries, hasn't he, and not been available. We had Thiago picking up injuries, and then you get those baseline injuries, and that adds to more injuries because you're putting more pressure on the players who have got to play every week, and that is really difficult for them physically to do that, and therefore you end up with that sort of, it exacerbates really. So that really is something for Liverpool to think about going into this summer, is that they need to sort of that midfield, yes, but they just need to make the squad bigger as a whole really, and protect against injuries.
You talked about Jota and Diaz coming back. They've been big for Liverpool, obviously, up front. The right back area might be an area that's addressed, not just for Trent Alexander-Arnold, because he needs to be moved out. Maybe plays the midfield a bit more next season, a bit more competition for him. Always helps to have someone pushing you, right? Things like that. But let's focus on the midfield, because like you said, that's been a huge part of this for Liverpool. Hi, just a quick note to ask if you could hit that subscribe button. It's really helping us out. We're about to talk Liverpool transfers for midfield. We'll be looking at the likes of Mount, the latest with Alexis Mac Allister, as well as bringing you updates on other players too. So stick with us, but if you could hit that subscribe, that would be fantastic. This is the place to be this summer for all the transfers upcoming and what's happening moving into the window too. All right, I'll get out your way and let's talk Liverpool transfer targets. Let's talk about Alexis Mac Allister, I think, because that's starting to get a little bit more movement, more legs in that now. We know Liverpool like him. What's the latest you're hearing on that?
Yeah, so Liverpool playing the cards close to the chest as you'd sort of expect on this, not sort of outright suggesting that he's a target, but we know definitely someone they like, and we know from sources as well that there's been contact with his camp, early in at this point already. There's talks going on there, which I think is indicative. It tells you a lot really about where Liverpool are up to. They're quite clearly trying to get the business done early this summer. We know for a fact they want to do that. Jurgen Klopp wants as close to his final squad together for the start of pre-season as possible. He wants to get that real baseline fitness there, because that's been an issue for Liverpool, and he wants to know exactly what he's going to be working with going forward. So the fact that they've contacted Mac Allister's camp gives you an idea that he's going to be a really sort of high up prime target for them going into summer. Because, for example, Moises Caicedo is someone Liverpool have liked for a long time. But I know for a fact that there's not been contact with his representatives up to this point in the summer, which, like I say, that suggests something that Caicedo is maybe not high up on the list. They maybe think it'd be too much money, or they think there'll be competition there. They don't think they could definitely get him. Whereas Mac Allister, they know that they could probably get that deal done and get it done early. And obviously, he's a player of real quality who they like. So I think that is giving you an early indication of sort of the targets they're going for. And yeah, I'd suggest that Mac Allister is going to be how much he's going to cost a lot of money. So he's quite clearly sort of one of the more prime targets in midfield.
Yeah, he's a World Cup winner. He's high energy. The way he plays though does fit that Klopp style. It's not exactly the most surprising move, is it, for Jurgen Klopp to make? 70 million probably. David, are we around that ballpark figure for Mac Allister, or are we looking at something a little bit more, perhaps?
Maybe Liverpool can dip Brighton under there, but I think you're going to struggle to knock too much off the price, only on the basis that they're very, very difficult to deal with. They know what they want. Yeah. And again, Liverpool will have a very good idea of what the price is going to be. I don't think they're going into this blind. And, I think it's one of the things that's maybe informed them not going for Caicedo again, that, very early in talks, Brighton to give you an idea of what they're looking for. And we know for a fact that they don't tend to waver on that. They don't tend to negotiate. This is the price. And if you don't really meet it, or you don't get very, very close to it, then, Brighton don't want to sell and they won't sell, and they'll sort of stick to the guns on that. So, that
Arsenal
sounds
found
right.
out in January, right? Arsenal had that with Caicedo, 2 bids in, and Brighton said 80 million or nothing, and it never happened, right?
Exactly, and that in all clubs across Premier League, that really reinforces the message when something like that happens. Clubs know that they can't mess Brighton around. So yeah, I think Liverpool will know that it's going to be sort of high end like that. But they obviously think that he's a really good fit for them, and someone who'd really work in the Jurgen Klopp midfield. And I think you see, even just I think he's been exceptional for Brighton. But you look at the Argentina World Cup midfield, and that. It had I'm probably being a little harsh here, but it had a workman-like feel to it. It was all about sort of providing a platform for what was in front of them, Lionel Messi being one of those. But that's Liverpool at the best. I think that's, when Liverpool have won everything under Jurgen Klopp, that's what they've had, is that real graft in the middle. Obviously with a high degree of quality in there. I don't want to play that down at all, but real energy and workman-like midfield that has provided a foundation. I think Mac Allister would fit into that really nicely, because he has got that energy, is allied to that real quality on the ball, as well as a lovely midfielder to watch.
Yeah, they've never kind of had that 10, like a Bruno Fernandes or anything like that. It's all been kind of, you're right, as workman. So watch out for Rodrigo de Paul next to Liverpool. Maybe just go by the Argentina midfield and sort them out. But I get your point. That is true. They've always been there for the Salahs, the Manes, to try and help them get what they need, isn't it? And Diaz, Nunez now, obviously, and co. So Alexis Mac Allister, we can expect more news on that to come shortly. That's, like I said, follow David for that, because that's definitely a target. Moises Caicedo, you have said Liverpool have liked. We know that he's also just recently signed a new long-term deal with Brighton. It's till 2027. I believe Brighton have an option to extend on that deal as well. I think when it comes into his last 2 years or so, that becomes active. That's going to be a lot of money still to move him out. And the price point, the contract is more than protecting their asset in terms of finance rather than his commitment. And we do expect someone to come in from this summer. They're still interested in him. But you think Liverpool may be moving away from that simply because they haven't moved for him now?
Yeah, exactly. I know there was still some conversations ongoing with his representatives around sort of January. There was still some sort of talks there, not with a view to sort of moving in January, but maybe sort of going forward and seeing what his situation was like, monitoring that. But the fact that they haven't contacted them at this point, I think, suggests that it's not someone Liverpool are going to go for this summer, to be honest. I just can't see that happening, because, like I said, they want to get the business done early. And if that is the case, then they would be making those moves now. They would be talking about what the contract would look like, what it's going to take to get him out of Brighton, and that's not happening at the moment. So yeah, I think Mac Allister, out of the two Brighton guys, Mac Allister is higher up on the list certainly than Caicedo at the moment.
Romeo Lavia is another midfielder who there's a lot of interest in. Obviously, the Southampton man's probably been the highlight of a very poor season for Southampton this year. Chelsea are pushing at the moment to try and get him. They want to try and beat the queue of clubs that are after him. Liverpool heavily linked with him as well, David. Someone that the club Liverpool likes, my understanding, might have had a look at as well. what's your news on Lavia's situation for Liverpool?
Yeah, I've absolutely no doubt they've been keeping an eye on him. Seems like, in terms of his profile, looks like sort of player who'd fit Liverpool like a glove. But again, not one that I think they're really progressing with at the moment. Not one that I currently sort of expect them to really push on with. It again, there were other names out there. I think Liverpool are quite clearly doing the legwork on. They're seeing what's happening with Ryan Gravenberch at Bayern Munich. Mason Mount, we've talked about a lot of times, and know he's a really high priority target if Liverpool can get him.
We'll touch on Mount as well, for
Yeah,
sure.
we would love to get him. So Lavia, I think it's maybe not in that bracket, and I think there's one of the reasons possibly for that is that there's probably going to be a lot of competition around him. There's a lot of clubs sniffing around at the moment, and maybe not any certainty that Liverpool could say he's definitely going to join us. Now that was as much as the price. One of the reasons they pulled out the Jude Bellingham race was because they thought it was going to descend into a little bit of a battle, or that was certainly what the club was saying. So they don't want to get dragged into any situations like that. And with Lavia, maybe there's going to be a little bit of that going on this summer because, as you say, so much interest in him. But no doubt a player that Liverpool have looked at closely, but again, not one I maybe think they will progress with.
So you talked about Ryan Gravenberch there, obviously at Bayern Munich, incredibly talented young Dutch international player, came from Ajax, hasn't settled at Bayern, has he? It's not really quite gone to plan for him. Is he expected to leave, David? How are Liverpool getting on with him? Because we do know, obviously, Liverpool like him a lot.
Yeah, Liverpool don't really know at the moment. That's the thing. The tough thing is they can't predict whether Bayern will let him go or what talks will look like between him at Bayern at the end of the season. I think they've just got a new manager in Tuchel, and so I'm sure there's a conversation to be had there in terms of am I part of your plans? Have I got any chance of playing in the coming season at all? And if not, then let me go. And I think that will be a conversation that will take place at the end of the season. And also, there's a lot of moving parts in terms of what will Liverpool need at that point. Will they have got Mac Allister over the line? Will they get that deal done early? The expectation is from Mac Allister's side that they want to get that deal done early. So if that happens, and then Mount tells Chelsea he wants to leave, do Liverpool feel they need Gravenberch as well? Like I say, moving parts and a lot to decide there. But I think the first decision on Gravenberch is going to be, can he get out of Bayern? Does he need to do that? Will he, is there more of a guarantee that he'll play more games next season? We'll have to sort of see on that. But if he is made available, the expectation would be for a fairly cut price fee. And Liverpool liked him before he joined Bayern. So, certainly one they'll be keeping an eye on going into the early part of the summer.
Yeah, for sure. He's a player that wants to play, isn't he? I think he's expressed that himself. I just want to play. And if it's going to be at Bayern, I'm sure he'll be happy to stay. But he needs to work out where it's actually going to be. Let's talk about Mason Mount. Obviously, he's been probably one of the biggest stories throughout the kind of pre-window, if you like. Obviously, Chelsea are in contract talks still. There is confidence from the Chelsea side, I can tell you that they will get a deal done. They do believe that they can keep him at this club. Nothing's confirmed, though, from Mason Mount or Chelsea yet. And we do understand that the Liverpool situation is interesting to Mount. I think Klopp is certainly someone he'd quite like to play for. What's your ear to the ground Liverpool side of things, David? Do you think there's a confidence they can get Mason Mount, or is that another up in the air situation just simply because of the nature of it?
Yeah, I think that perfectly describes it. Really, I would never say any confidence on the Liverpool side because they just know sort of how volatile the situation is in terms of Mason Mount could turn around tomorrow and say, do you know what, I like this contract offer at Chelsea. I think they're going to appoint, say Pochettino, and I like what he's proposing for the club moving forward. And there's a real place for me here, and I know I'm going to fit into this team going forward. We'll have to see how that sort of pans out. It is so chaotic at Chelsea at the moment that even though I know they're making a renewed push at the moment, it's going to take some sales pitch, I imagine, because we've already got so far down the line. We're so close to that 1 year out from the end of his contract that it's difficult to see them pulling back. And we know that they'd also appointed Neil Fewins, the agent of Jordan Henderson and Virgil van Dijk, to sort of sound out what was out there. So if Liverpool make a convincing sales pitch themselves, maybe that will just turn Mount's head, and we'll have to see going forward. I know on the players' side that they're sort of keeping tight-lipped about it all and really don't want to sort of disrespect Chelsea, and I think that's fair because I don't think there's any desire from Mount's side surely to leave Chelsea on sort of bad terms. You'd think because it's his boyhood club, he's won everything there, and they've done so much for him. So but it's as much as there's that respect there, he also want to make a decision as early as possible. And I'd also say you've got to factor in that from the Chelsea side, from an FFP perspective that they probably have to, if they are going to sell him, probably have to sell him by June the 30th. So, we're going to have to get towards a resolution on this fairly quickly, really. I mean, that's, only next month. So, I expect some movement on that. But like I say, I wouldn't say confidence on the Liverpool side, but definitely a real desire to sign Mason Mount if he comes available and to fight off any other interest from Premier League clubs, because they really do like him as a player. And I think he'd be a great fit for that sort of Jordan Henderson role on the right-hand side at number 8. Yeah, he'd be absolutely perfect fit for that. And they need English players as well, by the way, in terms of squad building. That's a real consideration for them going forward, because they're going to lose a few this summer.
Yeah, Milner, isn't he? We talked about Milner and we've touched on the kind of Hendersons, but Milner's one of those guys that's, I think he's third in the all-time Premier League appearance list, just behind Ryan Giggs and Gareth Barry, isn't he? Unbelievable player. He seems to get fitter every year as well, which is ridiculous. Probably playing when he's 55, David. He's one of these guys, isn't he? But he's getting closer to Brighton as well, isn't he?
Yeah, it's looking like he's going to leave now. I think Jurgen Klopp has spoken in the past about sort of would have liked to keep him on another year, possibly if he could. But I think there's a realization there that his game time is going to be limited next season into even further, because Liverpool are doing this midfield overhaul, and they hope that that's really going to have a strong impact, and they won't maybe need to lean on James Milner as much as they have, and a chance to join Brighton, where he will play regularly and be an experienced head in the dressing room, sort of, by the sounds of things, really appeals to him. So, it looks like it's heading that way. And he there was interest from Burnley as well, but I think he's going to turn that down and make the move to Brighton. A really exciting club to be at the moment. So, a shame for Liverpool to lose him, but 8 years of sort of remarkable service, won every trophy available to him, and what a servant he's been for Liverpool. And I must say, from a personal basis, when he joined from Manchester City in 2015, and you think about where Liverpool were at that point, sort of viewed him in my head as well, if he's not good enough for Manchester City at the moment, and where Liverpool want to go, why are they signing him, and how wrong was that? It just been absolutely incredible. He's still got a lot more games ahead of him at Brighton. I've no doubt he will feature there prominently. So yeah, remarkable.
Yeah, Brighton have got a lot of young players as well, don't they? And the likes of kind of Gilmore and people like that working around Milner. Having a person like that in the changing room is only a good thing. You can see why Klopp would want to have kept him as well. But there's also, I've seen a fantastic stat of positions he's played for Liverpool, and he's literally nearly played everywhere but goals for Liverpool. He's been a fantastic player. So yeah, he's looking closer to Brighton now. Let's touch on Bruno Guimaraes, just because that came out last night. I know for a fact Newcastle do not want to sell Bruno Guimaraes. He is the star that they're building their future around, and he will likely in the next couple of weeks you'll hear announcement of a new deal for him at Newcastle United. So the talk of Bruno Guimaraes and Liverpool, we kind of can judge by what we've said about previous things Liverpool have looked at and thought, no, I'm not paying that. I think that'll wipe that out for you. It's not going to happen. Bruno Guimaraes won't be at Newcastle next season if Newcastle have their way, so that's not going to happen. Manuel Ugarte is worth talking about. I always say Urgat. I don't know if it's Ugarte. I don't know if I'm saying it wrong, but I'll go with Urgat now. You can correct me in the comments. A really, really interesting player, but you've talked about bidding wars. He's a player that's got 5, 6, 7 clubs who are all looking at him during this window. So does that immediately put Liverpool off then?
If Liverpool, can get assurances from the player that he wants to only come to Anfield, then maybe that, it is a workaround for them and allows them to sort of get that deal done quite early. And obviously they would know then what they'd have to pay Sporting. I haven't heard anything from the Liverpool side in terms of the interest on him. And I know he's a player who they've maybe watched and scouted and looked at closely, but whether that's something they're going to follow up on, like I say, it's maybe not something they'd have to progress with as quickly as the other deals, in terms of, because they're not maybe going to have to negotiate with Sporting if that release clause is there.
£53 million release clause, you're quite right.
That's an interesting one. They wouldn't have to fight on the club side to get that done. They know what they'd have to pay. But like I say, I haven't heard anything yet in terms of Liverpool progressing with that one. But he's certainly a player they've been interested in and looked at least and scouted. But I think that's true for quite a lot of Premier League clubs. And yeah, be interesting to see where he ends up this summer.
What about Ansu Fati? Is another name that gets floated about a lot. I don't know if that's just because it's Barcelona and it gets you traction. Perhaps that's true, but Liverpool very strong in that area of the pitch, aren't they? Up top, it's not going to be an area they're looking to strengthen. But are you hearing anything about Ansu Fati, David, because that's one that's been linked to Liverpool a lot recently from Barcelona. And it seems like an area that Liverpool don't really need as many numbers. They've got Diaz, they've got Jota, they've got Nunez. It's countless numbers up top, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't really expect a sort of forward to come in unless it's a more sort of a little cheap option, maybe at the end of the window, or say Fabio Carvalho maybe would leave on loan, and they feel like they need another young option there to sort of back up what they've got in the front line. But yeah, the real priority this summer, as we said, is to just sort out that midfield as much as they can, and maybe just add maybe one more defender as well. I think those are the real priorities. And the front line is, like we said, when they've got everyone fit, and we're seeing it at the moment, they've got a lot of goals in that team, and the ability to blow teams away. So and there will be an expectation as well that, for example, Darwin Núñez will maybe hopefully take a little bit of a leap forward next season and show a little bit more than he has been doing, even though he's scored a decent amount of goals in his debut season. So I think Liverpool are pretty settled with what they've got up front at the moment.
Yeah, Nunez came alive around Christmas time, didn't he? Really, I think it was. And he had a kind of moment where everyone went, oh, he's here. This is who Liverpool signed. And he's kind of dipped again, hasn't he? But he's still young. He's going to be inconsistent. So I suppose Klopp will be aware of that. Let's go to the back line then. Liverpool, obviously, they have Van Dijk, they have Konate, they have some great players there. But the right back situation could be interesting. Perhaps a backup right back for Trent Alexander-Arnold. You might see him move into the midfield more as well. It's clearly an area Liverpool would like to play him. And he does play like a six, David. He does literally naturally just play like that, doesn't he? There's a brilliant clip where he gets the ball into him and he shifts out his feet and he whips it into Salah on the right-hand side. And you're just like, that's a six. It's the middle of the park. It's a six.
Yeah.
So perhaps some more competition as well to drive him, because it's not been an easy year for Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Yeah, I'm interested with some of the shouts as well about the idea that Alexander-Arnold couldn't naturally play midfield unless he was drifting there from right back, which is obviously what he's doing at the moment. But teams are already trying to press him in that position anyway, and people forget that he played throughout the academy. He was naturally a midfielder. He only got shoved out to right back when it was a way of getting him into the first team. So I think for me, he could play midfield with an orthodox right back behind him. I think that is something Liverpool should maybe look at trying from time to time. The talk of a backup right back being signed, I think, forgets that Calvin Ramsey's there. I know he's had a bit of a horror year with injuries, but at Liverpool rate him highly. There was a reason they signed him, and I think he had shown some promise before he sort of struggled with the injury. So he is there and he is available. I think something Liverpool may look at in terms of, I do expect them to sign a defender, but maybe it won't be a backup right back. Maybe it will be something like a centre half who can play full back. I've seen links to, for example, Jurriën Timber at the moment, who for me would look like a centre half who could play that role that Konate is playing at the moment, being dragged out to right back. He could comfortably fit into that position. And also, I think Liverpool, Robertson, for example, has struggled maybe a little bit with this shifter system, hasn't quite looked himself. And that's because the left back at the moment is being asked to do things that are quite centre halfy, and that is maybe something that's going to be a feature of Liverpool's system going forward. So as I say, maybe it's going to be a centre half who's got the ability to play at full back on either side, and that will really bolster things. Because there are several moving parts there as well. It's, do they believe that Calvin Ramsey is capable of playing the backup role in right back? Do they think is Kostas Tsimikas maybe looking for a move because he wants to play more football going forward? That is something to maybe keep an eye on.
Yeah, there's like an area that they could also strengthen. And Calvin Ramsey was fantastic at Aberdeen here in Scotland, and when Liverpool signed him, I thought Robertson and Ramsey, Scotland represented. I thought fantastic, but he has struggled. And maybe there's just a suggestion that he could get some minutes elsewhere. David, on loan, obviously not sold. It's going to be a very, 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 very busy summer for Liverpool, very busy summer for Jurgen Klopp. We've not spoke about Bellingham, but he's getting closer to Real Madrid, and they've lost out on that. I mean, you touched on the fact they didn't want to get into that bidding war. Looks like he's going to join Real Madrid. I think Liverpool will be back next year. I don't think there's any major concerns. I think this happens with Klopp, and it'll be a really interesting time where they have a Mount, Urgart, Mac Allister centre midfield. That sounds quite good, actually, doesn't it, to be fair? Or something along the lines, which we'll wait and see. But make sure you follow David. He's on Twitter. I'll put his link in the description as well. Well, that one, the team who will put his link in the description, and follow Football Insider and follow myself. And we'll see you in the next one. Cheerio.